Hello everyone, it's Sandra here. Are you ever curious about the tape that comes on Amazon packages? Well, I am. You can see some prime tape here. You can see some of the traditional black tape. And, I tear this off the boxes and then I put the boxes through the shredder. But I've also seen people put the tape right into their worm farms. So I'm like, well, let's do a definitive test and let me show you why I'm curious. In the spring, AJ had a cardboard box challenge and I grew cilantro. And I'll link to my entry videos in the description. So just the other day, I took my cardboard box challenge box that still had soil in it. There's the soil that I pulled out of the box. And I noticed it was an Amazon box and it was unmodified in the contest. And I noticed when I looked at the box, there was still tape and strings. And this had been sitting wet since April, I believe, when we did the cardboard box challenge with soil in it, because I got multiple crops of cilantro. I kept picking it as it grew up to the level of the box. I would harvest the cilantro. So this material was kept damp. It is still damp that I pulled out. I actually found a giant worm because I'd used worm castings. I found a fully grown adult worm. I suspect there may be other worms in this material. And so what I've decided to do is compost the rest of this box and compost some extra Amazon tape as bedding. And let's just see what these worms can do. I suspect that this Amazon tape did not disintegrate because it was not in a worm bin. It was just in damp, mostly soil. Now there was a handful of worm castings in my cardboard box challenge, but that was it. There was no active worms. Like I said, I found one worm after the challenge was over. So let's take a look at starting a worm bin that has just this tape, or has the tape, the remnants of the cardboard box challenge in it, and we'll put that together and come back and see what that looks like. Okay, so what I have done is I added the remnants of the cardboard box from the cardboard box challenge on top of that moistened Amazon tape that I pulled off of some other Amazon boxes. And I'm going to take some of this bucket of material. Now, we were outside the other day and we decided to pull some castings from, I think it was Iggly and Fuzzy, or Iggly and Wuzzy, I think. And so this is just a Kleenex I used for wiping off something. And so obviously these castings are not all the way gone. They're not all the way processed. We didn't sift them. We just put them right in. And you see there's something like manure nugget or something. So these have active microbes. They're not sifted at all. We just wanted to pull some extra material out of here and sit it in buckets for several months to finish up in the house. Well, what better way to finish it up than in this bin? And although we did a loose migration with these bins, like I said, look at this, we did not sift at all. So there's lots of chunky material in here, and there are lots of cocoons in here. So we didn't sift. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some handfuls of this and put it in that bucket. So just a moment. So there are definitely worms that I'm finding as I'm going through this bucket material. And when I'm seeing worms as I go through the bucket, I'm actually throwing them into my new Amazon. Oops, that's my scooter again. Darn it, I leave it on. When I'm seeing some worms as I'm going through these castings from Iggly, I'm just tossing them over to the other bucket, and to make sure that there's a bit of a population. I've probably thrown about 6 of them in, so let me throw some more worms in. It's not going to be a worm ball, but it's going to be enough worms to repopulate this bucket and take care, I hope, of that Amazon box and the Amazon tape. All right. Okay, so here's another handful of the worms that I've fished out of the bucket that we harvested, and they are going to go into my new bucket, my new Amazon bucket. So I probably have at least 20 worms, maybe 25 worms total in there, a variety of sizes. I just, sometimes I think the adults may be harder to adjust to a new surrounding than new ones. This is an experiment with Amazon packaging. I don't want to obviously harm any worms. What Samantha says from Mimi's Worms is she always does a test with her new bedding materials in with a smaller system, maybe even as many as like 24 worms, or as few as 24 worms. And so this is sort of my equivalent of that. I'm testing this out with several dozen worms, just going to see how long it takes them to process this bedding, whether those long blue strings totally disappear. I haven't cut them, so I should be able to see them in their entirety. There's a few more of the worms going in. Just trying to get the population up here so that we don't have to wait forever to see results. And what I will do then, now that I've got the population up, is I will just add some of these castings, mostly processed castings, to augment the bedding. So here's my Amazon test bucket. I threw some extra worms right on the top. You can see most of them are adults. It has probably about 3 or 4 inches of those processed castings that I pulled out of my tower systems. And so I'm going to just feed it and treat it like a normal worm bucket. And hopefully in a few weeks, I'll dig down and we will see how that Amazon packaging tape is doing. All right, that's my latest Amazon bucket.